Julian Strawther might be too good for Summer League. Christian Braun says the two-guard spot is far from being his. Jamal still hasn't signed the extension. Jalen Pickett struggles again. And I've got thoughts on how it's probably not bad that this is the low point for the Nuggets. We'll talk about all that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us, being with us. We appreciate you guys being an everyday or hanging out with us Monday through Friday and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys giving us a like and subscribe over at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Make sure to give us a 5-star review on the podcast version as well if you're listening. Hope your week is off to a great start. On today's show, we'll talk about Summer League Game 2, the highs, the lows, talk about Julian Strawther, talk about Jalen Pickett. We'll also get into some of Christian Braun's comments as he says the two-guard spot is not guaranteed for him and he's not treating it as such. We'll talk about Jamal Murray and why the extension hasn't been affirmed and all as well. I'll get into a little bit of why it is that this is probably Denver's low point, and that's a reason for optimism. We'll talk about that and more on today's show. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the comments over at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Tommy's in here with us. Hurricane Lewis, 5-ish is hanging out today. Appreciate him being back. Blair is in Disney World. What's up, Blair? Enjoy the rides there. Stay out of the heat. All right. And Nemanja also hanging out with us as well. Let's start here. Julian Strawther was phenomenal in the Nuggets' second Summer League game. They lose to the Raptors late after Hunter Tyson fouls on a key possession late, and that wound up being the difference in the game. But Strawther was absolutely phenomenal in this game. This was the game that you really wanted to see. He had 32 points on 10 of 21 shooting, 6 of 12 from three-point range. So he was 4 of 9 from inside the arc in this one, but he showed that finishing ability in the first game. 5 dimes for Strawther, including a lot of like actual opportunities to kind of bend the floor. He had 5 turnovers, but several of them I don't think were his fault. And some of these, honestly, a couple of the shots that he had to take were pretty much heaves. Didn't love the end game stuff just because it's hero ball, but it's Summer League. I don't mind that too much. Strawther looks like a guy that can play in the rotation. And, you know, Michael Malone's kind of mentioned it that in practice, like, hey, the two-guard spot's not guaranteed. It's open. And we'll see like how it plays out. Looking forward to a competitive battle. Like the idea is that there's actually going to be like a battle for the starting two-guard spot, and that Julian Strawther could potentially be in line for it over Christian Braun. Now, I hesitate to kind of get too carried away with Summer League. I've just been around and done this enough to see so many guys come in and have like really great summer leagues. And then you get into training camp and it's like, oh no. Once you're either in the flow of this team or you're facing actual NBA players, things change dramatically. But the biggest thing for a guy that you drafted that you want to see at Summer League, especially in his second year, is you want to see him be so good you don't need him to play anymore. And Strawther, quite honestly, put on that kind of performance in game 2. Game 1 was kind of getting his feet wet. Now, was the playmaking and floor general stuff as good as you may have wanted it with him being on ball? No. And that may be a reality, is like, no, like Julian Strawther's not going to be a backup point guard. Like, I just don't see that happening. If it does, I think it's going to be pretty rough, because I don't think that he sees the floor and is able to really look for those kind of opportunities as much. He's a scorer. Like, that's who Julian is. He's a shooter and he's a scorer. He actually had some really great cuts in this game and some really good off-ball movement, found some good opportunities off of offensive rebounds and things like that. One of the few good Jalen Pickett plays was actually an offensive rebound that Pickett got and kicked out to Strawther, where he found a perfect space on the floor. The defense caught unaware for another catch-and-shoot 3. But Strawther at least shows definable NBA qualities. There are things that Julian can do on the floor that will help the Nuggets. He has a role, like he has a space. He has the ability to be on the court. And not only that, but I will say, like, he is slithery and he has shown some real maneuverability and ability to read the lane and figure out how to beat the defense. And that to me is, I think, just as important as anything here in Summer League. And so Strawther, I think, really, he's obviously the big gainer. And this is what you wanted to see, was the first round pick from last year looked like a guy who's too good to play in Summer League. And that, I think, is a win for the Nuggets. That, yes, it was on high volume. Yes, the reads were not great, but if you're expecting a 32-point, no turnover triple-double in Summer League, you're never going to get it, because that's not how Summer League is played. And it's just never going to be kind of the way that it's going to be. It's going to kind of look out. Trey Alexander, another good game. Had a really efficient game. Didn't shoot as much in this one. That to me was pretty good to see. Trey Alexander finishes 6 of 10 for 18 points in this game. He had 5 dimes and only 3 turnovers. Thought he made some really good plays and sequences to kind of read the floor. Trey Alexander looks like a guy that at least is going to get a shot to compete for a roster spot, and that's good to see as well. Then there's Jalen Pickett. Okay. So once again, Pickett does not look like he does anything. And look, some of this, I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy. I just don't want to go overboard. I don't want to overreact to Summer League. I just don't think it helps really, because you will overreact in the moment and you'll feel very confident of something. And then training camp and preseason comes and things look a lot different. And with Julian handling the ball as much as he is, and these things being very straight line, up and down, vertical kind of plays, with Julian creating, trying to find 3-point opportunities, and them not really running the ball at all, like Jaden Pickett is kind of showing that he can't be a secondary playmaker. That to me, I think is like the real concern here, is like he's not good enough or quick enough to create his own shot, so he can't be the primary. And he doesn't really do anything on the off-ball side because there's not really an opportunity for him to. And if you kind of project this into the regular season, let's say Jalen was the backup point guard and the first guard off the bench, right, for the Nuggets, if Christian Braun were to start. And he played alongside Jamal in those kind of minutes, in the stagger minutes. If Jalen can't make Julian Strawther or Trey Alexander look better in Summer League, he's not going to be able to make Jamal look better in those minutes. And you go like, well, what if he just took over Jamal's when Jamal wasn't on the floor and he played with Jokic? Okay, but now you're concerned because Jalen's shot looks concerned. Now, look, again, he can come into camp and be in a totally refreshed state of mind, maybe better shape, etc., and maybe it's a lot better. But like Pickett's shot looks like a guy that doesn't have confidence, and that's concerning. And if you're not ready to shoot and be a confident and efficient, I don't know that you can get the Nikola minutes. You have to be a guy that at least is able to capitalize on all the things that Nikola does. So it's not good. It's not good at all. Again, there's more games to play. Maybe Jalen has a better one, but it has not been the start that anybody in Nuggets world wanted for Jalen Pickett to start the Summer League. It was rough, and there's really no way around that. Up next, I'll talk a little bit about Hunter Tyson as well. And then I want to talk about Christian Braun's comments that nothing is certain and what that means if the 2-guard spot actually is up in the air. Talk about that and more up next here on Locked On Nuggets. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. You know, NBA win totals are starting to trickle out. They're actually being in the market now. Nuggets up there at 52.5. A lot of confidence still in the Nuggets to be a team that wins 50 games, which I think is well earned. And you will not find me saying they're going to win less than 50 this year. So as much doom and gloom, it's not like there's projecting a huge drop off of the Denver Nuggets. Are still one of the better teams in the Western Conference. You can bet that. Plus, you can get into WNBA. I've got a bunch of overs on Tuesday's games that I've logged in the Action Network app. Been a really fun WNBA season. Looking forward to the rest of this month before they go to the Olympics. This summer, like I said, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. Head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us and joining us, like folks in the comments, like MG, who's complaining about Strawther. Strawther has a low IQ, tied up with 50 seconds left, and he decides to take a fadeaway 3-shot for no reason. At the play before, he dribbled the shot clock out and caused a low IQ turnover. Look, man, this is Summer League. You got to lower the standard. You're not going to be able to leverage the defense and get a good quality shot with guys that have played 4 days together, and most of them are not NBA caliber players. Like, please don't. Like, that is not a reflection of Julian's basketball IQ. That is, hey, we want you to work on this kind of situation for you to work on your clutch shot mechanics. Like, work on being ready in that kind of situation. It is not a matter of Jalen Pickett's IQ. They're not trying to leverage for the best shot possible there. Come on now. Let's be reasonable. Let's talk about Hunter Tyson. Man, there's just like a really tough thing happening where teams are literally targeting him over and over and over and over and over again. Like, it is crazy the amount of shots that the Raptors were able to generate just by basically initiating action and then fighting Hunter's man. Because Hunter is like, some of this is just simple stuff that honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that he's still struggling with, where it's like he's camping in the paint off the corner shooter way early with like just daring a guy in the open corner to shoot. Now, maybe that is the scheme. Maybe it's just like, hey, look, this is Summer League. We'll dare those guys to make shots, but they're getting really high quality looks out of these engagements constantly. And when he does kind of rotate out, then he's getting beat backdoor. The closeouts were bad. Like, Hunter's defense was really bad. He did have a good charge. I liked what I saw from there. He tried to finish inside a couple of times and got blocked with like 4 Raptors around him. And some of that's just Summer League stuff. But Hunter does not look nearly as aggressive and in control as he did last Summer League. And that's rough after, he basically fell out immediately of the rotation once they got into training camp. So, I mean, again, these are players that the Nuggets have invested in. And that to me is like one of the things that really kind of gets into this is the CBA opened the possibility for these guaranteed contracts for second rounders. Fernando asked, what's the options to get rid of Pickett? It's insane to me to have the plan be the starters need rest, but we're going to have 4 roster spots who are unplayable. And so I will say this, that like, yeah, like he's on a guaranteed contract. Like, this is tough. Like, I was kind of curious about going that far in, and it felt very much like well, look what we did with the first time that we got guys, and look what we'll do now. Like, look what we did with CB and Peyton, and we know those guys are good, so it's going to be great now too. And we'll just like, we know we can draft basically locks. That to me is like a little confusing and concerning. Like, Pickett's on his deal for 2 more years. Now, they can just eat that $3 million if they want to, but that's going to hurt against your cap, and it's going to limit your kind of options for who you're able to add. But there's not like a lot of options here, unless they just find a team that's willing to dump them for nothing without taking on any second rounders, because they've sent out so many in the Charlotte deal for Reggie. So it's really tough. That I don't know that there's a lot of ways that Jalen Pickett's not on the roster. You got to rehab some of this value. And this is one of the struggles, is like, look, when you're in a spot of like having to rehab that kind of value, you can't do it because you can't play the guys because you're trying to win. It's easy to rehab a guy if you're like, look, we got long-term plans. We're okay if we're 500, 30 wins, whatever. This is not that team. And so trying to like figure out how to figure all this stuff out, I think is really difficult. Meanwhile, wanted to talk about this. Christian Braun said the right thing, which is like, hey, nothing's earned, nothing's assured. Like, I'm not going into the season like I'm guaranteed the 2-guard spot. I think it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. I think that the front office, and I'll say this too, I think ownership would like Christian Braun to be the starting 2-guard. But ultimately, that is going to be the coaching staff's prerogative. That Christian hasn't gotten paid, and Christian is not that level of player. And so I'm going to be very curious to see what happens when Christian is kind of put in this situation where, hey, you're the incumbent, but you do have to earn it. You have to fight off the rest of the guys. And if you have guys like Julian Strawther, or if they add Russell Westbrook and Russ comes into camp and is just like, hey, he's been a better guard, we're going to play him and Jamal together, which I don't love the idea of as a starting unit. And it also takes away from the value of signing Russ to play backup point. But if that's like the way that this goes, it can get pretty awkward. Now, I think the most likely scenario is just that Christian earns it. That Christian looks like the kind of defensive menace that he always is, that his offense is good enough in practice for him to earn those minutes. The question for me is always going to be, what does that look like in games? Because I do think that teams are going to dare Christian Braun. Now, if they started Julian Strawther, is that going to be the same? Yes. They would dare Julian Strawther and be like, hey, kid, prove to us that you can actually punish us for this. But I have a lot more confidence in Julian Strawther's shooting than I do in Christian Braun's. And the data says that Christian Braun is now a good shooter. I'm just still a little skeptical of it. So I think a little concerned here for how that could potentially play out. And I don't think that, I don't think there's any benefit from a sports, like the genuinely important things about sport and teams of you have to earn your place, which doesn't happen enough in the NBA, in my opinion. I think it's good to just have it be like, no, like Christian needs to come into camp hungry. Christian needs to come into camp and be like, they believe in me enough to give me this opportunity, but I have to earn it. And like, that's, I think, what you really want to see, that opportunity is how you want to see him approach it. What I do think is kind of interesting, though, is not that I love, NBA veterans like Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray don't want to see a fluctuation in starting units. They want to see the same 5 guys that they always play with. Everybody in the NBA in the regular season, it's all about routine. You want the same flights and the same rest and the same naps and the same mealtime and the same training. You want it to be as routine as possible, and you just like focus on those things so you're not trying to figure anything out. That said, I like some of the teams around the league that tend to flex their starters a little bit when they have situations like this. If you're facing a team where it's like, hey, we could probably win this game with shooting if we just like overwhelm them, I don't mind giving Julian Strawther a night where he starts at 2 guard. Is that going to stunt Christian Braun's confidence or development? It shouldn't. Is Christian so good that he should just automatically be the lock no matter what? I'm not sure about that. And yes, I'm more of a Christian Braun skeptic. Again, I want to stress this season at this moment. Like, I think Christian's going to be a vet in this league for 12 years. I think Christian's going to play 12 to 15 years in the NBA and be a guy that helps his teams win. Christian is so balanced and steady. And when you talk to him, you get a real sense for his professionality and confidence without a sense of arrogance. And like, this shows that, right? Like, I'm going to go out there and earn it, but he's not like, I'm the baddest dude on the planet, I need the ball. That would be crazy on this team. He knows his role, which is really valuable. I just would like, I'm just going to be open to the idea that maybe it's not going to work. Maybe it does, but I'm open to the idea that it doesn't. I do like the idea of it being a little bit more complicated and being open to the idea of the Nuggets searching for an answer throughout the regular season for who their 2 guard is. Because I think we're just very locked into the idea of like the Nuggets are what they are and that's all they're going to be. Now, if you're like, Matt, they don't have a lot of options for how to improve. Absolutely true. But there are always levers and buttons that you can push, and there are always things that you can find throughout the course of an NBA season. And I'm just open to those kind of possibilities, especially when it comes to who that 5th starter is. Is that ideal for a team trying to win a championship? No. But is it better than just being like, this better work? That's what I always get nervous about. Is you should never go into a season with something that you don't know works and be like, this better work. That to me is where you get in trouble. On the other side, Jamal Murray hasn't signed his extension. Calvin Booth joined the Summer League broadcast and talked about it. There's not a lot of concern over it. Why not? Is this a thing or is it not? Plus, I'll get into why this is probably Denver's low point, and you should probably, we should all kind of recognize that this is probably the worst it's going to be for Denver, at least until next spring. We'll talk about that up next here on Locked On Nuggets. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning a championship, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part's guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with the eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Monday. Hope your week's starting off great. All right, let's talk about Jamal. So Calvin Booth kind of came on the broadcast and talked about how there are still stuff to hammer out after the Olympics. Jamal was very predictably churlish when asked about the contract situation after the friendly versus Team USA. Players are always going to get very prickly about contract negotiations. It's just part of that kind of dynamic. I don't I honestly think that probably what happened was both sides agreed we're going to do this. And then Shams just ran with that versus this has already been agreed upon. I don't think that there's a debate over how much money Jamal's going to make. I think there's debates over how, if, and when whatever restrictions or conditions the contract comes with that can get uncomfortable. But I don't know that I get a sense from Calvin Booth's comments, from talking to people, I don't get a sense that there's like a huge appetite for Denver to play hardball here. I just don't know that this is. There are oftentimes cases around the league where a front office will kind of forecast hey, we're not exactly like there are some things we want too. And then it comes in a negotiation and they walk out and the player just got whatever they wanted because they're that good. And Jamal's honestly that good. For all of the problems, for all the disappointment of this year's playoffs, Jamal's that good. That's why they won a championship. Not the only reason. It's one reason. It's not the biggest reason. It's one reason. So I do worry always whenever it's like, well, it's not done yet. But part of me also is just kind of the opinion that I don't know as much credit as Jamal deserves for the 2023 season. Your contract is supposed to be built on expectation going forward. And Jamal has not showcased, hey, I'm going to be an all-star player every year. Right? If he had done that, talk about going forward, if he had at least proven, hey, no matter what, I'm going to be an all-star. Okay. Then that changes the equation. If he had once again shown up and just been explosive in the playoffs and dominated these games, and he had 2 huge shots versus the Lakers, that counts. But the overall games were bad. If he had dominated during the playoffs, okay, you've proven that. The problem is like Jamal now has both questions. It's like, well, you haven't been an all-star and you haven't done that. So do you deserve the max outright, no restrictions, no questions asked? And the answer is probably yes. Like you're saying, it's not even about deserve. It's about like, what are you going to get? Is he probably going to get it? Yes. Because he still is that good. And there'd be a lot of teams around the league that would be very willing to offer Jamal Murray that much money. Like, let's be clear on this. Like, it's not like Jamal would have the rest of the league would not have the same questions about Jamal Murray. They would be willing to take that chances on him. Like Orlando would be like, yep, absolutely. Come on down. Got the money for you. There's a lot of teams that would be in that position to want to make him their centerpiece of the team. And you go like, well, he hasn't even been an all-star. No, he hasn't been an all-star next to Nikola Jokic with 2 years missed to injury. And I still think that matters, but it's part of the conversation I think we have to have here is you having him is way better than other teams having him. And that's, I think, part of the equation as well. Things are also not as bad, I think, with Jamal as I think that they're sometimes made out to be. I think it's people have run away with narratives pretty consistently. I think like there's comments about, is he spoiling the Nuggets culture? No, that's not true. That's not a thing. It's like that tweet. Charlie Brown did not have hoes. That's not true. Jamal, again, has helped the Nuggets win a ton of games through the years. And that's a big reason why they're still committed to him. And they will probably figure this out. Do I think it would be in the Nuggets' best interest to put some conditions on the full max contract? Yes. Do I think Jamal deserves the opportunity to earn a full max contract? Yes. I think both those things can be true. The difference, though, is like this is business, and Jamal's going to want everything up front guaranteed because that's how the NBA works. You want that, and he's seen how quickly an injury can just derail things. So he's going to want those assurances from the franchise that he's helped win a title for. And I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable for the Nuggets to be like, well, like some things would be nice. I just don't know if they're going to get there and actually be able to get them. We'll see how that deal turns out. But I don't foresee any situation in which this turns into a contract holdout, lame duck year, Jamal gets traded. I don't see that happening. That's not the vibe that the front office has given that. Okay. Final thing here before we get out of here. I think the doomerism is what it's referred to on Nuggets Reddit. And I think I get how frustrated everyone is and how bad it seems. I think it seems worse because you're in free agency and you're watching the Mavericks get Klay Thompson and the Sixers get Paul George and the Warriors get DeAnthony Melton even. Like that's a lower deal, but that would be such a good deal for Denver, right? If they gotten Melton or DeLon Wright, who went to Milwaukee. Not everybody. A lot of teams in the West got better. Denver got worse for the second year in a row. And that's, Hurricane says it's an accurate portrayal of events. And I don't disagree that things are way worse and that's frustrating. But the question is just what's the floor here? Is this, do you really, I got crushed last year for saying the Nuggets were going to win less than 50 games. They won 57. I was wrong. Super wrong. And everybody was really mad at me for it. And they were right. And then later on, I said they were going to finish third, and everybody got super mad at me and made fun of me. And then they finished second, and they would have finished third had Karl-Anthony Towns not gotten hurt. So balances out. I think this is probably the low point for Denver. It's going to come to opening night, and you're going to watch Nikola Jokic put up 30 points and probably a triple-double, and you're going to feel a lot better about life. And you're going to see them beat the Jazz by 15, and you're going to see them beat probably the Rockets they struggled with last year, but let's say they beat the Rockets. They should beat the Rockets by 10, and you're going to feel better. They're going to be 17-10. And it's oh yeah, the Nuggets are really good. The Nuggets are still really good. They still have a really good team with a really good coach and the best player in the world. And so this low point with these concerns, there's a lot of stress about the bench unit, which the depth matters. I'm not denying it doesn't. I've talked about how it does. Also, they were up 20 in the fourth quarter of Game 7 for the chance of the Western Conference Finals. You can't get around that. No matter how much you're yeah, but no, they close out Game 7, they beat Dallas, and then it's Boston, and maybe they don't have enough, but maybe they do. And I like that. Everyone loved that matchup for them. Everyone in Denver felt confident, including me, felt very confident about Denver's ability to beat Boston, who was the best team in the league last year. That's how good Denver is. And Denver was not that good because of KCP. As much as I love KCP and what he brought to the table and who he was in the locker room, and as much as I like being the guy that says, hey, there are other good Nuggets, because I get really frustrated at the idea that it's just Nikola, because it's not. And I can't in the same breath be hey, it's not just Nikola, and then be well, it doesn't matter that they lost this veteran who's shot 40% from three almost every year and was basically deserved to be second team all defense last year. I can't say that. But also they're still going to be really good, and they will find answers and find ways. And so much about the playoffs is just finding a way. They're not so bad that they're going to drop off and not have an opportunity to be a top 4 seed. So they're going to be in the conversation to win the title. And then from there, it's about, can you figure out ways to win? Minnesota was a way better team than Dallas. I'm sorry, they were. They were a way better team than Dallas. I love Dallas because I knew that they would have ways to hurt Minnesota that Minnesota wouldn't be able to solve. That's all you need is the right sequence of events. And those answers and problems and questions are not going to be decided by Jalen Pickett or the backup point guard or the backup center or any of those things. It's going to be decided by how good the starting 5 can be. And they could still be really good. So this is probably the low point. And I think that's worth considering. That's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets on Monday. I appreciate you guys being with us. Swipe will be with you tomorrow. Adam should be around for Wednesday's show. He's going to make up missing World's Finest on Sunday with a show later in the week. Hope you guys give us a like and subscribe on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Share with a friend. Also, listen to the podcast. Download our podcast. Our downloads have been... We've lost steam there. Send the podcast to a friend and be you'd really like this show when Adam's on or whatever. Make sure to have yourselves a great week. We'll talk to you guys again after the next Nuggets game. I'll talk to you guys again later in the week. We'll see you again soon on Locked On Nuggets.